When a rookie football prodigy turns down a guaranteed multi-million-dollar shoe deal, corporate boardrooms do not just panic, they realize their entire exploitation model is about to shatter. For decades, traditional endorsement contracts have acted as golden handcuffs, forcing athletes to trade away their trademarks, intellectual property, and long-term equity for a quick upfront check. Shedeur Sanders saw the hidden trap built to keep players obedient, and he chose to burn the industry's golden playbook to the ground. By waging war against corporate servitude, he built a non-exclusive direct-to-consumer empire that generated over $20 million in his very first year alone. This is the high-stakes story of how Shedeur exposed the endorsement trap, weaponized his own name, and permanently changed the business of sports forever. To fully understand the gravity of this moment, you have to look at the massive physical and economic divide between the traditional sports establishment and the new era of player autonomy. On one side, you have the gleaming multi-billion-dollar global headquarters of legacy athletic apparel giants, monolithic glass towers in Oregon and Germany, where corporate executives, brand strategists, and legal teams have perfected the art of athlete monetization over half a century. Inside these pristine boardrooms, the standard rookie shoe deal is treated like an assembly line product. The formula is as predictable as it is predatory. Locate the hottest incoming draft talent, dangle an immediate seven-figure check in front of them, and hand over a 60-page contract designed to lock away their freedom. For generations, this contract was the holy grail for every young football player. Signing an exclusive shoe deal was the ultimate symbol that you had finally arrived at the apex of professional sports. It meant signature colorways, massive primetime television commercials, towering billboards hovering over major metropolitan cities, and instant generational wealth. Most rookies do not read the fine print. They simply grab the pen and sign on the dotted line, overwhelmed by the sight of guaranteed upfront money. They believe they are being elevated into elite company, completely unaware that they have just surrendered their most valuable asset, their long-term independent equity. On the other side of this divide sits Shedeur Sanders and his independent apparel brand, SS2 Legendary. Free from corporate boardrooms and committee approvals, SS2 Legendary represents a sleek, agile, direct-to-consumer powerhouse built for the modern digital age. Where legacy corporations see a young athlete as a walking billboard to sell their inventory, Shedeur saw himself as an enterprise in his own right. When the world's biggest shoe companies presented him with their traditional exclusive endorsement templates, they assumed he would follow the historic blueprint. They expected a standard signing press release, a smiling photo opportunity holding up a corporate sneaker, and total compliance with their restrictive marketing calendar. Instead, Shedeur did the unthinkable. He walked away from guaranteed multi-million-dollar contracts before he ever took a single snap as a professional. This rejection sent shockwaves through executive suites across the industry. Why would one of the most hyped, polarizing, and marketable quarterbacks in modern football history turn down the very deal that every athlete spends their entire life chasing? To the traditional executive class, turning down an exclusive shoe deal looked like financial madness or unearned hubris. But to Shedeur, signing that contract meant entering a trap. The standard template required strict exclusivity, meaning he would be legally prohibited from launching his own apparel lines, blocked from partnering with competing lifestyle brands, and forced to submit his personal business ventures for corporate approval. Legacy brands were not offering a partnership. They were offering to buy his autonomy and monopolize his earning potential. Shedeur realized that taking a quick check today meant sacrificing hundreds of millions of dollars in future enterprise value tomorrow. By refusing to let a single corporate entity own his identity, Shedeur initiated a high-stakes gamble on himself, setting the stage for a financial revolution that would redefine the entire landscape of sports business. To understand how a rookie quarterback could execute such a ruthless corporate stand, you have to trace the lineage back to the master architect of athlete leverage, Deion "Primetime" Sanders. Decades before Shedeur ever stepped into a contract negotiation, Deion disrupted the sports landscape by creating his iconic Nike Diamond Turf line. Primetime did not just wear Nike, he commanded Nike. He understood that a signature sneaker was not merely a piece of leather and rubber, but a cultural currency that defined an athlete's aura, lifestyle, and enduring leverage over the executive suite. But Coach Prime also saw the hidden limitations of the original era, how even the biggest stars of the 1990s were ultimately bound by corporate dictated terms, capped royalties, and rigid corporate master-servant power dynamics. He absorbed every flaw in the legacy model, internalized the traps, and spent 2 decades preparing his son to dismantle the system from the inside out. 247 Live Culture. Shedeur was raised under this explicit blueprint. Guaranteed cash is cheap, but equity, co-branding, and non-exclusive leverage build real wealth. The traditional sports marketing apparatus relies heavily on an athlete's desperation, dangling life-changing upfront money to trick young stars into signing away their entire commercial upside. Shedeur's strategy completely flipped this power dynamic on its head. Instead of chasing a single giant monolithic deal that would monopolize his brand, he orchestrated a sophisticated ecosystem of elite, non-exclusive partnerships that respected his personal autonomy. Look at the roster of heavyweights he aligned with early in his career. Luxury powerhouse Ralph Lauren, culture giant Beats by Dre, and sports nutrition titan Gatorade. Every single contract was surgically structured not as a standard endorsement, but as a collaborative, multi-dimensional co-branding venture where Shedeur retained control of his own enterprise. YouTube. This multi-brand framework allowed Shedeur to occupy completely different cultural spheres simultaneously without burning down his own intellectual property. When legacy shoe companies tried to force him into standard, non-compete clauses, Shedeur demanded terms that allowed his personal brand, SS2 Legendary, to exist alongside corporate giants. When beverage giants offered massive baseline checks, his team pushed for structural alignment, long-term brand equity, and total creative freedom over how his image was marketed to his generation. He refused to let any single corporate board of directors dictate what he could wear, what he could promote, or how he could expand his business ventures off the field. By taking his father's foundational playbook and modernizing it for the direct-to-consumer digital age, Shedeur proved that a modern athlete does not need a traditional corporate overlord to validate their status. The Sanders family recognized that an exclusive shoe template is essentially an interest-free loan taken against an athlete's future enterprise value. Corporate giants take the risk-free upside, while the player takes all the physical risk on the field. Shedeur rejected the role of a corporate pawn, opting instead to operate as a media engine, fashion house, and sports entity all rolled into one. He took Deion's Nike legacy, stripped away the corporate handcuffs, and presented the entire sports industry with a brand new playbook for player empowerment. To expose the endorsement trap, you have to peel back the polished layers of corporate PR and examine the cold, brutal realities written into the fine print of standard rookie athletic contracts. For over half a century, legacy shoe giants have utilized contracts that read less like business partnerships and more like binding non-compete agreements designed to strip an athlete of their economic leverage. When an incoming star signs a traditional exclusive endorsement deal, they are not just agreeing to wear a specific sneaker on game day, they are legally surrendering the rights to their personal identity. Standard clauses grant corporations broad control over the athlete's public appearances, media engagements, and personal style, locking them into rigid, demanding marketing schedules that cater entirely to the brand's quarterly financial cycles. The most dangerous element of these legacy contracts lies in their aggressive intellectual property restrictions and ironclad non-compete clauses. Under a standard exclusive deal, an athlete is strictly prohibited from wearing, promoting, or partnering with any third-party company that produces competing footwear or apparel. This sounds simple on the surface, but in practice, it effectively suffocates an athlete's ability to build their own independent business ventures. If a player wants to launch a personal clothing line, release a custom merchandise drop, or incubate an off-field lifestyle brand, the shoe giant's legal department steps in immediately. The contract dictates that any venture remotely resembling apparel or footwear belongs to the corporate partner, requires explicit written permission, or is flatly banned under non-compete restrictions. Furthermore, traditional endorsement models rely on structured royalty caps and one-sided termination clauses that leave the athlete taking almost all the risk. A young star might sign a contract that promises a high headline number, but the fine print often includes strict performance escalators, reduction clauses for missing games due to injury, and total brand ownership of any trademarked slogans or logos created during the contract term. If an athlete creates a viral phrase or iconic personal brand while under contract, the corporate entity frequently claims ownership or co-ownership of the trademark, ensuring that even if the player leaves, the multi-billion-dollar corporation continues to profit off the athlete's cultural footprint forever. The athlete gets a small percentage check today, while the corporation locks in tens of millions in long-term enterprise value. This is precisely why Shedeur Sanders viewed these traditional multi-million-dollar offers as a gilded cage. He saw how generations of legendarily marketable athletes were bound to strict corporate schedules, unable to capitalize on viral moments or build their own digital commerce engines without corporate interference. By refusing to sign away his trademark rights or submit his personal ventures to corporate oversight, Shedeur avoided the legal mechanisms that keep athletes financially dependent on shoe executives. He recognized that the ultimate form of leverage in the modern economy is total control over your intellectual property. While corporate boardrooms scrambled to explain why their standard trap failed to ensnare the most talked-about quarterback of his generation, Shedeur set his sights on proving that absolute independence generates far greater wealth than corporate servitude ever could. To prove that independence is superior to corporate servitude, you do not argue philosophy, you show the math. When an athlete signs a standard, exclusive $5 million a year rookie shoe deal, that headline number sounds life-changing to the average public. But strip away the corporate marketing spin and the reality looks radically different. After agent fees, executive management takes, performance reduction clauses, and federal taxes, that $5 million quickly shrinks to a fraction of its total value. More importantly, the corporation uses that athlete's image to drive hundreds of millions of dollars in total sales, keeping the overwhelming majority of profit margins inside their own bottom line, while the player receives a meager single-digit royalty check on sold inventory. Shedeur Sanders looked at that traditional corporate financial model, tore it apart, and rebuilt his income architecture around direct-to-consumer economics. By holding on to 100% of his brand equity through SS2 Legendary, Shedeur captured the total profit margin of every single garment sold, completely cutting out the corporate middleman. Instead of earning a standard $2 or $3 royalty on a corporate manufactured hoodie, SS2 Legendary generated high-margin revenue on every piece of merchandise dropped. Through strategic limited edition releases, instant digital drops, and a massive direct line of communication to millions of fans across modern social platforms, his direct-to-consumer apparel engine turned instant cultural moments into immediate liquid cash flow. When you stack that direct-to-consumer machine alongside his non-exclusive commercial ecosystem, the financial breakdown becomes staggering. By refusing an exclusive footwear trap, Shedeur created a diversified portfolio of top-tier corporate partnerships that complemented his personal brand rather than suppressing it. While legacy shoe companies wanted to pay him one static annual check to own everything, Shedeur collected distinct high-value checks from elite partners across multiple non-competing industries: luxury fashion with Ralph Lauren, premium audio tech with Beats by Dre, performance nutrition with Gatorade, and high-growth digital media platforms all poured revenue into his corporate structure simultaneously, all while leaving his core intellectual property completely untouchable. When the financial ledger closed on his very first year as a professional, the numbers completely shattered industry norms. Shedeur's combined off-field income surpassed $20 million in a single calendar year, a total that eclipsed what almost every rookie bound to an exclusive shoe deal made in off-field endorsements. By holding the line, refusing to sign away his trademark rights, and maintaining absolute ownership of his direct-to-consumer platform, Shedeur didn't just beat the traditional corporate system at its own game. He mathematically proved that an independent athlete who owns their brand equity will out-earn a signed corporate pawn every single time. What we are witnessing in real time is far more than a single player's clever financial flex. It is the catalyst for an irreversible seismic shift across the entire sports media complex. Shedeur Sanders did not just reject a standard shoe contract, he systematically detonated the foundational business model that sports apparel giants have used to dominate athletes for over half a century. By proving that an incoming rookie can reject the traditional corporate playbook, retain total ownership of his intellectual property, and construct a $20 million off-field empire on his own terms, Shedeur provided a real-time, step-by-step masterclass for every generation of elite athletic talent moving forward. The ripple effects of this strategic triumph are already tearing through locker rooms, agency war rooms, and executive suites across the globe. A new generation of high school prodigies, college stars, and prospective top-tier draft picks are watching closely, completely reassessing their worth before ever stepping into a contract negotiation. They no longer look at an exclusive shoe contract as the ultimate milestone of athletic achievement. They see it for what it truly is, an outdated mechanism designed to lease their cultural capital for pennies on the dollar. The Sanders family business model has exposed the stark reality that an athlete is no longer just a contracted performer or a passive brand ambassador. In the modern digital era, a truly elite athlete is an independent media house, a direct-to-consumer merchandise engine, and a standalone enterprise capable of generating massive multi-industry leverage without seeking corporate permission. As a direct result of this shift, the traditional corporate powers are being forced into an unprecedented existential crisis. The era where legacy sportswear giants could dictate one-sided terms, enforce draconian non-compete clauses, and hoard the vast majority of brand equity is officially coming to an end. To compete for the modern star, corporate boardrooms are being forced to adapt to Shedeur's blueprint, offering true co-branding rights, meaningful equity stakes, non-exclusive flexibility, and respect for an athlete's pre-existing direct-to-consumer footprint. Those that refuse to evolve will find themselves completely shut out, left with second-tier talent, while the true needle movers build their own independent infrastructure. Ultimately, Shedeur Sanders' legacy off the field will not be defined merely by the tens of millions of dollars he accumulated in his rookie year. but by the structural freedom he unlocked for everyone who comes after him. He permanently destroyed the myth that an athlete must surrender their independence to achieve ultimate financial power. By standing firm against the endorsement trap, weaponizing his own name, and forcing the corporate establishment to play by his rules, Shedeur did not just change his own financial destiny, he drew the line in the sand, ignited a structural revolution, and permanently ushered in the new era of total player empowerment.